All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into a text called Invocation of the Adversary by Actia Secker Armanius. We're going to break down a very specific ritual from this source, looking at its structure, its symbolism, and most importantly, its stated goal, all directly from the text itself. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we've got to get on the same page about one key word: invocation. Now, at its core, it's about calling in, and the source makes a huge point about this. This isn't just about calling out to some external thing. It's about bringing that essence or that spirit into yourself. And honestly, remembering that is going to be crucial for understanding everything that comes next. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll tackle the ritual's basic purpose. Then, we'll look at the central figure, this adversary. After that, we're going to break down the two main parts of the ceremony, one at noon, one at midnight. And finally, we'll get to the ultimate goal, which is laid out in the text's own commentary. All right, let's get right into the thick of it. What is this ritual really for? The introduction of the text sets up a very specific idea right from the start. So right out of the gate, the text makes it super clear this isn't about just calling up some spirit for the sake of it. It's about connecting with a fundamental force. And you got to pay attention to those key words: change, rebellion, and progression. The whole invocation is positioned as a tool for personal transformation, with this fire spirit as the engine. So you might be wondering, who is this adversary? Well, the text doesn't really present it as one single thing. Instead, what we get is a being with two very distinct, almost complementary faces. And yeah, this is where you can really see that duality in action. On one hand, you've got Lucifer, described as this angelic essence, a source of wisdom. He's the intellectual force. But on the other hand, you have Iblis, and this figure is way more primal, more elemental, a djinn of fire, tied to these raw, instinctual forms, like the serpent, the wolf, the dragon. The ritual is designed to engage with both sides of this coin. Okay, so the ritual itself is actually split into two parts, and it's all tied to the sun's cycle. The first one kicks off at noon, when the sun is just blazing at its absolute peak, at its most powerful. And just listen to the language here. It's incredibly powerful, right? The very first lines of the noon rite are all about overwhelming heat, fire, and solar power. It's all about this outward expressive energy that's directly connected to that scorching sun. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, all the symbolism in this rite points upward and outward. The text connects this part of the ritual to things like pride, self-knowledge, and the sun at its most glorious. It's all about growth, it's about illumination, it's about ascension. The idea is to align yourself with this radiant solar force. And the text doesn't beat around the bush about the goal here. The whole point of this noon rite is to use this brilliant Luciferian light to become stronger, to transcend, and to ascend. It's basically a ceremony of empowerment through this kind of expressed glory and illumination. All right, now let's flip the coin. We're moving to the second half, which happens at midnight. And as you'd probably guess, it's pretty much a mirror image of the first part, a shadow, really. It shifts the focus completely from the sun and bright light to the moon and an internal kind of darkness. You can just feel the contrast immediately. The text literally says, these are words against the sun. The whole vibe shifts from the physical world of daylight to this dreaming aether and the wisdom of the moon. This is framed as a deeply internal, very intuitive kind of journey. And this is where the symbolism gets a lot more, esoteric, right? We're talking about a black light, the serpent soul. These are concepts that are all tied to feeding your shadow. This is not about the outward glory of the sun. This is about diving into that hidden internal darkness to find a different kind of power there, represented by this figure of the peacock angel, which, according to the source, is a symbol of this stunning beauty that you can only really see once you embrace the darkness. So, what's the point of all this? Well, here's the stated goal of the midnight rite. According to the text, it's all about finding your own light, but finding it within the darkness. It's a process of transformation where you embrace the shadow self to become your own self-created source of illumination. Okay, so we've got these two totally opposite rites, one of blazing sun, one of deep shadow. So what gives? Why do both? Well, the commentary section in the text pulls it all together and explains the ultimate goal that connects them. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the text completely reframes the whole thing. See, it's not actually about bossing around some external spirit. It's a method for achieving command over the entire approximation of self, meaning the light
and the dark parts, the conscious and the subconscious, the whole shebang.
So the commentary kind of lays out the mental steps here. First, you get into this state of gnosis, where your inner world is the only thing that's real. Second, the ritual becomes this symbolic act of, well, turning the knife inward. It's an act of pure, focused will, directed at yourself. And the result of all that is supposed to be total mastery over your own psyche.
And this is the ultimate endgame, according to the text. By bringing together both the light and the dark parts of the psyche, the solar and the lunar, the practitioner lays what the author calls a powerful foundation for self-deification. Or, in other words, the process of becoming the god of your own personal universe.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, it's a pretty fascinating framework, right? It uses all this powerful, rebellious symbolism of an external adversary to feel something that's actually deeply internal, deeply psychological. The fire of Lucifer and the shadow of Iblis, they become metaphors for parts of our own minds. Which leaves us with one big question to chew on. Is the real rebellion here against some cosmic order, or is it a rebellion against the limits of the self?